decades later, the land question in Acholi is still unanswered, but also there's a rising speculation on issues relating to the Balalo. Joining me to discuss this topic, which is the crisis of the Balalo and the land question in Acholi, I have a panel which could actually be defined as a mano. As you can see, only gentlemen are with us today. My name is Douglas Onen, and I'll be your host for today. So today, on the inter-university debates, just quickly, I'll let the panelists introduce themselves, and then we can delve into discussing tonight's question. I'll begin right next to my right hand here, the gentleman in a black suit. Go ahead and introduce himself, and then we can move like that until the gentleman who is a familiar face on the show just introduce himself, and then we can begin the discussion. You're most welcome.
Good afternoon, viewers. My name is Opiyo Nobert Acaye, the current speaker of Acholi Students Union in Uganda, and the current aspiring guild president, Uganda Christian University. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to having a very wonderful discussion with you, the speaker, Acholi Students Union, but also you'll give us an understanding of what's happening on ground. Yes, Mr. President-elect.
Well, dear viewers, good afternoon. My name is Aruho Brian. I'm the 15th Guild President-elect, swearing in on Friday, God willingly. And I do encourage you to listen in. We're going to discuss quite a number of things. So it's going to be a hot panel. I'm with my seniors here from both ends. So yeah, I believe it will be a beautiful panel. But thank you for the invitation.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for taking time and joining us for this wonderful discussion. We're looking forward to getting your insights, Mr. President, sir. The gentleman from FDC, Masawi Ivan, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you to Civic Space TV, the crew for the invite. I'm really honored to be part of the panel with my brothers here on such an interesting topic. Thank you very much.
Definitely. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to having an interesting conversation with you, the Pan-Africanist.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Phillip, this is my name, and I'm happy to be here.
Definitely. All right. So you have heard it done there from the panelists today. But just quickly before we get into the nitty-gritties of the conversation, I just want to pick your thoughts on what came into your mind, or how you're going to debunk on this conversation and how you're going to flow. Just in a minute or so, I'll just get your thoughts on that, and then we can begin the conversation. I'll begin with you, Phillip.
Thank you, Drake. Talking a matter about the Balalo in northern Uganda, like they are called, I don't know whether that has been allowed in the English dictionary now, but it's generally a question of two things. One, land, and two, settler communities. And emphasizing the latter, we've seen how matters around settler communities unfold in quite violent ways. And a more vibrant example is the Israel-Palestine war in Gaza today. It's a very good example of how extreme such can be. And it's unfortunate that we can still have this in the 21st century, in 2023. But also it's a question of leadership. How leaders respond to issues, but also citizens knowing which leaders are able to solve what at a particular time. So generally, it's a matter we drive around leadership, a matter we drive around settler communities, and a matter we drive around land and how it's owned and how people can to be where they are.
All right, thank you. We shall get into understanding into detail the question of leadership, settler communities, and how exactly the issue of land comes in. And I'm particularly interested in how we can integrate all those issues and make or digest the conversation further. Let me listen in from Masawi Ivan. When you got to this topic, what are your first thoughts, or how are you going to delve through or maneuver through this conversation?
I think it is not a new topic, even to any believer, Christianity or where. In the books, even in Bibles, there was always land issues, there were invasions. My brother has even given us the most recent global, I think global, or we can say conflict that is cutting across globally. Whether Ukraine, Russia, there is an aspect of land and borders. Whether Israel, Palestine, the Gaza outbreak is even in the Bible. If you can read, most of the stories fought in the Bible were issues related with invasion. Even in our traditional African teachings and even the history we are taught in school, you studied the Bantu moved from one end in Cameroon Highlands or Ethiopia and have ended up at equator around the Great Lakes region. You studied that maybe this tribe was from Egypt, or there have been movements. The land issue has been, but just like my colleague put it right, I think there has been compliance and failure by leaders in generations to address the issue of land governance, both at cultural or traditional, but connecting with the real aspect of governance.
All right, interesting. Shall get to still also raise an important issue to do with the land question, but then the issue of land governance, but also how politicians come in. I'm looking forward to having that particular and interesting conversation with you. Mr. President, what came into your mind? Because I'm aware that you definitely know the history to do with the Balalo. But before we get into the nitty-gritties, before we get into that, let us just have a snippet of what you're prepared for us today.
Well, thank you so much. Not to contradict from what has already been said, I think this cuts down to leadership, which then we shall have to break down to the simpler aspects of implementation of directives. Then secondly, effects of conflicts, the long-term and short-term effects of conflicts, because this cuts across the Balalo question, which you said I affiliate with, yes. And then it cuts across everything, the land, the conflicts, and I mean, as we earlier on discussed, this is more of an effect that has continued running, and needless to say, it is that it's still going to continue running. But what measures can be done to maybe reduce? I think that's what we are going to be looking at more or less here, understanding the concept, the history, how it came into. But then thirdly, again, understanding the land, the whole land system in the Acholi sub-region and in northern Uganda as a whole, because then that's when you'll understand the whole concept. So to break it down, I think we have a very good panel, and I'm very sure that we are going to break down this whole thing.
All right. Yeah. The man himself from Acholi Students Association. We shall be beginning with you, but before we begin with you, kindly, what have you prepared for us today?
First of all, on my thoughts on the question on board, in regards to the previous atrocities that have been happening in the northern region, and looking at the different land conflicts that have been in Uganda as a country, we see that as something that could have been solved days or years before. But as my brothers on the panel and my seniors have been saying that just because that the leadership, the generations that have grown up and others that are more of looking at individual interests than the interest of the public. We believe that once these matters are looked into keenly and we get out from the interest of individuals, we believe that this can be the best solution. Thank you.
All right. So let's just begin the conversation. Acaye, you clearly bring out your conversation is going to focus on the prolonged conflict in Acholi, but also in the aspect that relates to individual interests. But before we get into those aspects to the conversation, we need to put our viewers up to speed. First of all, to understand the historical context where this comes from. But not only should they understand the historical context, we shall later on also bring in the aspect of land grabbing, which my brother Aruho will handle. But let's just get to the question that you are particularly interested in you handling, and that is, what is the historical background of the land tenure and use in Acholi? Because from my understanding of where I sit, I understand it's one that is customary, but there are other nitty-gritties or aspects that relate to that. So take us up to speed.
Thank you so much, moderator. Looking at the land tenure system in northern Uganda, that is basically a customary land tenure system, this means that land is communally owned ever since time immemorial. We have been seeing our elders, or the traditionalists, or the people who lived before us, were owning land as a community. And it is seen that me as an individual in a family or a clan, if I needed land as an individual, I would only get land through my clan. So if I communicate to my clan heads and I tell them I want land as an individual, they can allocate for me a portion, but I don't own that land. It is just portion that Acaye, this is your land, but you don't have full rights either to sell the land or to lease it to someone. That's basically it about the tenure system in Acholi line. And that is the stand. And up to date, we are still continuing with that. Though with developments and a lot of things in the law and promotion of people's individual interests, we see that people are trying to forcefully change this, but this has always been the narrative ever since.
So how then do you relate that in what's happening with the conflict that is in Apaa? Give us also a quick brief history to the issue of Apaa conflict that is going on.
Yeah, basically what I can say on the issue of Apaa, it started a long time ago. I think it's about now 10 years. That it started with during the insurgency, whereby the government relocated the people of Apaa into IDP camps to just secure them and make them be free from the rebels. But time came in where people started going back to their land, and the government already occupied that land. They consider that land as a wildlife reserve because the nature of Apaa. If you have been to Apaa is more of an area of approximately 3/4 of Kampala. It is not small land because it covers part of Adjumani, it covers part of Amoro, and we are seeing this is land that is one that has been communally owned and which people have been living there. That is question that many will hide with it, but we believe that it has been proved that the Acholi people have been there. So the conflict is still between who owns the land. And maybe briefly looking at the minerals that is on the land, because if you are to look at it is believed that there's uranium on that line. And if you are to look at Amuro Hot Spring, there's nothing that you will tell us that the hot spring came up because of something. It is basically uranium. That is the heat from too much heat from uranium that is causing the hot spring. So from the Albertine region up to Amuro and some parts of Adjumani, it is just a line that government has interest in. And they would love to occupy that line.
I hope those claims can be backed up in the conversation.
Yes,
because you understand those are very huge claims.
Yes.
And we need to prove it. But nonetheless, let us just listen in from my brother Aruho. My interest with you is on the aspect of Balalo and land grabbing in northern Uganda. 20 years down the road, we see people being placed in IDP camps. But on returning to their homes, returning to their villages, we see persons coming with cattle, putting their cattle to graze in people's lands, and later on claim interest on that land. And that alone has sparked a lot of conflict in the region, but also has sparked a lot of debate in the country as a whole. We saw what happened yesterday. The members of parliament the rebel members of parliament from Acholi, who were against the directive, was telling the people, the Balalo, to first, somewhat first hang on. But that aside, question 2 is in the line of land grabbing trends that are happening, not only in Acholi, but with special interest in Acholi. So the question is, what are the current trends in land grabbing in Acholi? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I wouldn't want us to just bump into it. As I said before, the land grabbing thing is more or less an effect of what happened. Because when you're saying 20 years back, that was nearly 2002. But then when you calculate nearly more or less 10 years back from 2002, that's when you had more of what Rwanda was trying to come into development into what we are seeing today. there was the civil unrest, let me call it an unrest, between the Tutsis and the Hutus. And this nearly led to the displacement, nearly a bigger majority of the Tutsi people coming into Uganda. So when they came in Uganda, you're not looking at 5, 10, 100 people or 500 people. You're looking at a very big quantity of people coming into a country, an influx. And so this pushed them to Western Uganda. So these are people, you would say more or less a migration, as what he said, though in this case it would not be a migration. So these are people with cattle. These are, you know how Westerners are, specifically the Bahima Tutsi, the whole Ankole area. So just to start with, in my view, that's where it would start from. Then second, you're looking at the LRA equation coming into. Now, going down to the Balalo, this then brought to, because when they came in, yes, we had land, and land is there. The land that is in Acholi sub-region, the land that is in Western Uganda, the land that is in Uganda is quite a lot for our need, but it's not a lot for our greed. Because I think that's where the whole issue came in, because there was need and then there was greed. And you have people coming in, they don't have land. Then you have government trying to put the people in. You had then the president Obote saying that, oh guys, get into the IDP camps and marry those ladies so that we can nearly incorporate them into the system. So you had people now moving, these guys are trying to look for a settlement. But then again, you're looking at the LRA question, which brought in an effect of people being displaced, because there are people running away looking for security. Then you have another group that is in after a narration of what had happened and they want land. Yeah. So what did this lead to? Later on, you have, I mean, we are still fighting with the effects of the conflict that brought the NRM government into power. Yeah, you have the likes of General Salim Saleh, though I do not know if it's confirmed, but these are people who got big chunks of land, very big chunks of land. So you have people who came into an area that had original settlers. The original settlers are not there. Some of these guys had already moved out because of the LRA conflict. Now, where does that leave them? You find Onen Drake Douglas, at the age of 2, was already away from the area. Maybe they've already come back to IDP camps, as we said before. But then again, you have the same government now saying, guys, go back to your land. Yeah, you're going back to your land, which you don't even know where it is. You just know I'm a Acholi, I'm from the Acholi sub-region, but you do not know where exactly the boundaries are. Again, as you say, these are the things that have led you're having, just to put it into modern context, you're having the Israel-Palestine conflict. Because people, yes, someone knows their land, but they do not know their boundaries. Then you have these guys who have access to guns coming in and putting in their own policies, as you would say. So the land grabbing has majorly come because of the effects of the civil unrest that happened in Rwanda, the LRA effect, but as well as the NRM effect that brought them into office. Yeah. Then, because if you look at this, going back to around November 2021, around November, I think it would be November 2021, when the RDC of I think Acholi sub-region of that area, northern Uganda, that is Mr. Lakot, if I'm to recall properly. I don't know if it's still the RDC. Mr. Lakot said that these people are using more of intimidation to stay with the control of that land. Now they have,
some actually have guns.
Some have guns, yes. They have big chunks of land that they have grabbed, and they release the cattle at night. The cattle at night is destroying people's crops. And when you come to talk to these people, I mean, it's not a hidden fact that they will start speaking in Wasiwota, Mbahi, Waramse, things like that. So clearly you know the area that they come from. These are not people that are willing to go down. Even when the president made the executive order number 3, they failed, again, as I said before, they failed to look into we failed to have a legal framework that accommodates them, because they are not supposed to be there. This is someone's land. You are there illegally. I mean, you're not there per the constitutional framework. You're not following orders. So you're having a big gap of what is happening. So that now comes down to what the MPs are saying. Guys, come on, fast hold and go. Yeah. This is why later on, when the president, I think in 2022, if I'm not to forget, he sent a team of officials from State House. But among the people that he sent was the Prime Minister, Robin Anabanja. There was the Internal Affairs Minister, that is General David Mohozi. and one other person I can't really recall, to go and make investigations into the same. Yeah. And what came out, it was more or less a mediation and nothing happened. Yeah. Later on, now you have recently a delegation that was led by the Chief Justice of Uganda, yeah, Alfonso Onyindolo, now meeting the president, again on the same issue. You have MPs going back on the same issue. Now this takes you back to why I say this is not an issue that is yet about to end, is because you're having disrespect of hierarchy. You're having a disrespect of implementation of orders, because we had the executive order number 3, which was never implemented to its fullest. You're having the president saying that, look, this is the deadline I'm giving you guys for you people to move out. And then the deadline over time and time again continues to be pushed from October to November to September and things like that. So in a nutshell, the whole land grabbing is coming from the effects of 3 unrests. 1, the Tutsi-Hutu unrest that happened in Rwanda. Secondly, the LRA. Thirdly, the conflict that, let's say, maybe a revolution as they would want to call it, but the conflict that brought the NRM government into power.
All right. Something I picked from his argumentation, which I'm going to push the question forward to my brother Masawi and then later on to my brother Phillip. Something to do with lack of political will to actually solve this issue. That we have politicians who have what he mentioned when in his introduction, people who are pushing forward in individual interest and looking on to score a political point somewhere. They are failing to solve the issue at hand. In your discussion, you give us a detailed submission on where these people come from, but also tell us a number of issues or factors that are motivating this particular people. But now I'm interested on another motivating factor, which is the politics at play. And that politics at play, I'm going to forward the question to my FDC cadre, Masawi Ivan, to come and respond on that issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and to my brothers for what they have supplemented on the topic. Anyone who is new in Uganda, the land issue is the most old issue. And it will be stupid for Ugandan to think that Museveni has good interest in avoiding such, because these are some of his cards he uses to play. It would be also unwise for someone to think that the Balalo have invaded Acholi by accident. The Baganda were here crying when their land was being taken. They are now done with them. They have been left. Baganda can now merely ride borders, go to Middle East and survive. Their land is gone. I've never heard that Balalo have captured Ushenyi or Ntungamo. They only look for strategic areas. But coming back, 6 months ago, the president did issue an executive order, like my brother stated. He later on followed by the acting chairperson, Uganda Lands Commission, Professor Nyeko. They set up a probe committee to probe the issue of the Balalo and the Acholi community over the invasion. The committee came up with some recommendations. Part was that these people were using intimidation, guns, the issue of customary land, the issue of use of political offices like RDCs and DPCs to see that they cheat people, push away people by making them sell cheaply because of the fear. All these issues in the current Uganda, where we are hostage of one man and his small gang, these are rebels. We should not run away. Museveni came to power through a rebel action. Like the way the Balalo have come, with a gun, with a force. Don't think that we are always cheap to think Museveni is very darling, is a Christian. He feels sorry for the Acholi. It is not new issue in Acholi. So ever since this issue began with the Apaa, women were undressed to fight for their land, but the simple they received was to be caned. Imagine a woman being caned on her own land, which is being invaded. That is how, when you look even the war, my brother states, what was Uganda's role in the war? RPF, these are Museveni's boys from the bush. Whatever is going is not that is by accident. Kagame was here to take what Rwanda. Why haven't they captured Mbarara and put their cows there? Why isn't there land conflicts in Mbarara that they are taking a land of Banyankole? Why did they come to Uganda? Is Zimbabwe still under Uganda? Is Mubende still under Uganda? Is Kasanda still under Uganda? Just geographically, but it's all gone. Wakiso here, you wake up and find the Mulalo is evicting 2 villages of Uganda that is his land. Museveni is very good at drama. He set up a Makerere commission. It came up with very, I think Makerere's parents paid tuition highly that she gets educated. Very educated group of people sat down, came up with recommendations after the probe. Part of the recommendation was even to have land and environment courts. Part of the recommendations was to register all customary land. Part of the recommendations was to put taxes on idle land, where land was idle, so that the government will put land into productivity. Museveni welcomed them very well. By that time, I think who was the Minister of Lands, Nabakova, the flower girl, very well celebrated receiving a document of where brains have put a lot of efforts. They took the document, none of us has ever had what came after the Makerere commission, but Ugandans, we lost the money. 200 billion was spent on 7 fellas moving around the country to probe the land issue to make a Makerere report. But what is the accountability we give? So, coming back to your question, the politics, don't think there is any goodwill that even you, the Acholis, you're going to win. It is a lie. This is how they are capturing Uganda to remain in power. How did they come with guns? Do Acholi move with guns? Why are they disarming Karamajongs? Is it by accident? Why did they disarm Karamajongs and leave the Balalo with guns? It is not anything it is by design. Their intention is clear. When you joke with them and think that we shall own our land, we shall find it there, you will wake up when you're homeless. I have friends who have grown here in Uganda, their grandparents had land, today they are landless. Not that they even sold the way they have been, Uganda like quick money, they sold off their land. It is not the case. They just lost it. Some is in court and they can't win. Because that is the design of the deep state we have in the country. We want to hear that the Balalo came from Rwanda and passed the whole of Kisoro and Kole and came for land in Gulu. Does it look by accident? Where were they to stop them? When I looked at the Acholi delegation led by Winidoro, Chief Justice, I looked at the group of a Chief Justice in a country who heads the law. You're still kneeling in front of someone just on behalf of your people. I think this would even not be something that a Chief Justice, you need to go to State House and plead that you're not heading an Acholi. A Chief Justice has been reduced to an Acholi delegation chairman. In a country where there is no law. That is how Makerere is. But a Chief Justice with the powers in your office, try to a fellow colleague leading a similar organ of power, and through legal ways put some of the backings on paper of how you can handle this conflict. You have to lead the delegation with chiefs and what? You have no power, but you're a Chief Justice, you just plead. Our land, really, our people are going. Actually, in his worry, he fears what he will go back and tell the Acholi, but it doesn't go that we are not going to accept. He's seeking for creating dialogue. As if for them you can go in their area and say, I've captured the Kiruhura, I want dialogue. I've captured his place where he has a farm in Gomba and say, I want dialogue. So it is not by accident, it is by design. I feel sorry. The law, Museveni had a chance to be better, and this is government when it came to issues of land. But the fact that their habits that brought them power came with ghosts that hunted them even when they were in government, it is now too late. And I am a Mugiso, I can't celebrate. The Balalo are going to invade the Bal. Anytime they will come, just the way they have approached Acholi. This confusion that maybe LRA had conflicts that brought IDPs, what? It is not real. Salim Saleh never went to the north to capture land not knowing LRA. Some land we got it before LRA came. This is a cartel that wants to just capture. It has captured the country, but it wants to leave from capturing in the mind to capturing you physically. You will buy land today, you have a land title, you hear one Agaba has come, the whole village is his. You go to court, they begin arresting you in the night, they begin harassing you. Your wife and kids say, we don't want to die here, better go and buy somewhere else. You're compromised by their fear, even if you're ready for whatever comes. So we don't need to pretend we come here, we jazz as if Acholi is the first to be grabbed land. The Baganda today are homeless. Bunyoro is similar. The Basoga in Kamuli and other places, it is the same. These Balalo don't come that they are nomadic pastoralists to graze and continue, the way the Karamojongs were doing up to Bugisu. The Karamojongs only needed cows and grass. These people come with the issue of taking land, not looking for pasture. Those two things are different. You can come to graze on my land. I may even say, but it's idle you graze. But they go to Nakasongola and find if there is any Muganda in Nakasongola owning an acre of land. It is not that the land was idle, but it is by design that this is how they want to stay in power. We may come here pretend these are the tactics anywhere in the world you used to stay in power. It is not going to be an issue that is going to end by maybe actually delegation has met with Museveni. I think as a generation we have a lot to deal with. First with the current administration that has failed us. But secondly, is to take away that gap that if to stay in power, you need to go and take over someone's land by intimidation, by a gun, by saying we are in power. It doesn't add up. They left DRC. Do you think DRC have never had land? They left Tanzania. Don't think that the Balalo are in Uganda by an accident. Why didn't they go to Tanzania and DRC, which are bigger than Uganda with more land? This is a project. And the project has now begun eating. They actually have been very proudly, we are now together with the government. But they are facing their pain now. Slowly it is going to accumulate. In the last election, they are the ones who contributed more to its coming to power. More than even the Westerners. But they are now also beginning to eat their own fruits. So we need to be honest ourselves as Ugandans, especially as the young generation. The issue of land is basic. It is a basic issue to address. Good enough we have a lawyer here. I think there have been a lot of recommendations, very wise, very neat, that can sort of, because our case is quite different. As we are now experiencing something that is new, that Mulalo is moving in 2023 to capture land. The other stories are quite old. You may blame them for maybe certain maybe education, maybe disparities. But in 2023, you're still using a gun to capture someone's land. Where we claim we are in a country with the rule of law, a country with free organs of power. A chief justice is still kneeling on behalf of his tribe. A man actually, you are a person land. I think it is a issue. I think I'll give my what I would like to put. Yes.
It's all right. Thank you. That has been a very interesting submission. And when we were submitting, I was seeing Aruho Brian smiling and itching to maybe respond. But I'll get to you. Let me first get to my brother Phillip. We're here discussing the land grabbing trends that are now happening. From the submission of my brother, he vividly shows us how the trends are. But I think Aruho may submit otherwise. But let us hear your land grabbing trends.
You see, it is unfortunate that our leadership is taking people's emotions unseriously. Land is one of the issues that touch their hearts and the innermost of individuals in any part of the world. And the moment you want to solve that particular case, you have to be careful in whatever you say, in whatever move you take. Now, when you have a leadership that issues directives, evict those people for the first time, then you hold it. You are inciting people. People are emotionally ready for an eviction. People are emotionally ready to regain their land if it is theirs. And then you say, oh, wait a bit. That is unfortunate for leadership in a country like Uganda. And it happens once, twice, and thrice. In 2018, I think that's when we had the first batch of cattle and Balalo being taken out of that part of the country. And I remember at the time they said the first phase would take out about 100,000 heads of cattle. You want to imagine that these Acholi and Karamajong and whoever is affected by this whole issue was celebrating, was jubilant. How do you expect that person to react when you then say, please coexist? Yet at first you said they are supposed to go and they are going. And in fact, because we had the president even saying the Attorney General must come up with a law to criminalize that activity. When you take it back, how do you expect these people to react? You are calling for conflict. And you see, you are legal scholars here. There is a doctrine in the law where they say, once you subject yourself to the law, then you must be ready to abide by the outcome. Now, if you are a leader in a country, Uganda, or whichever region of the country, you set up a commission, legally the Makerere Commission he talked about. It brings recommendations out. You set up another commission under the chairmanship of Professor Penmogi, the head of the Uganda Land Commission. It gives clear recommendations. The moment you choose to put it out, you are ready to follow what it sets out, and people are all ears and all eyes to listen and understand what they are saying and ready to abide by that. Now, the moment you don't agree with the commission you set up yourself, then you are raising a lot of questions. You are raising a lot of questions, and people will not believe even when you try. I had, from the second directive, I think the reason it was extended was because there was a letter that came from the chairman of Operation Wealth Creation advising the president to halt the eviction of the Balalo because they wanted to study some issues and something like that. Yes, maybe there was something to study. But why do you rush to make these decisions? Because an ordinary citizen, an ordinary Ugandan doesn't want to know the technicalities in taking this decision and putting out people. All he wants is his land. Emotions. And if we do not manage these emotions in that part of the country well, we're going to have trouble. We are heading for the worst, and we have examples. There are examples in Israel. We've had examples in this very country a few years ago, people fighting over land, and they can still happen.
All right, thank you. Your submission is that we have a leadership that has failed to put into consideration the emotions of the people.
Yes, and it is very important.
And that alone, you see conflicts arising north, east. Unfortunately, we haven't had in south. Maybe Brian will tell us. But no, tonight I just want us to ask these questions, the hard questions, and we are trying to get the answers. And let me ask the hard question now to my brother Nobert, and that is in line of the conflict resolution. And the issue at hand is the land question in Acholi, the crisis to do with the Balalo. Now, how has the Balalo crisis contributed to conflicts in Acholi? Because you see at the moment, we are on the spotlight. The people of Acholi are on the spotlight and questioning, we must have these persons evicted from our land.
Yes, thank you once again, moderator. Yeah, before I can continue, I think I would love to disagree a little bit with my senior brother, the FDC candidate in the House. On his submission on saying that the Chief Justice is bending law to the president, I think I strongly disagree with that. At this time, yes, at this time, we as the Acholi community, we are not looking at who is who. We are looking at probable solutions that can get us to a proper stand. Yeah, that's basically it on his submission. And I strongly disagree because we have lived in Uganda as a country whereby if you can't respect your boss, who are you?
But
the
issue at hand is you see Nobert.
Yes.
On the doctrine of separation of powers, you're a student of law.
Yes.
And in constitutional law, you are aware that we have 3 arms of government.
Yes.
We have the judiciary, we have the legislature, and we have the executive. And all those arms of government ought to work independently yet interdependently.
Yes.
Now, as the Chief Justice, the head of the judiciary, you have the powers and capacity to issue.
It's just we have
You
grown
have
in a country
all the
where
powers
Chief Justice is
that
a
the-
mockery.
that the
I
Chief
can't
Justice-
blame him.
But the
We
issue-
have grown in a country where Chief Justice is a mockery. So he has his right.
Let me defend him.
Yeah.
Because he has been really cornered.
No, not really.
In this country, Chief Justice is a mockery.
Drake, his submission is not from the point of view that,
Yeah, I
that
do.
he doesn't know what the Chief Justice is supposed to do.
True.
Yes? His submission, in my view,
Mm.
would be that let's understand where we are currently.
Mm.
We are not in Europe, we're in Africa. It is very true that you cannot bite the hand that feeds you. And it's very true that you need collective responsibility, as well as it is true that you need ADR, that's the alternative dispute resolution.
But Brian,
What I'm coming to is what he's saying.
it goes back to the principle. It goes back to the principle. We have all gone to school here and we're all students of law. Goes back to the principle. Like we must understand that certain things are just unacceptable. You do not expect in the 21st century certain things to happen the way they happen. Anyway.
But
Back to you.
The reality
No,
remains that is the principle just on paper or
Exactly. There is an illusion
on
that there
ground.
is reality.
that's the question that it stands open.
Yeah.
But in the reality, the paper
For
it's just
example,
on paper.
For example, Drake, you do know that we have very many good laws in Uganda.
I do know
We
that
have very good,
but
we
the
have very good
implementation, yes.
administrative bodies in Uganda.
Yeah.
What they recommend, is it usually implemented?
Definitely not. But let's just have his submission.
Yes, sir. Now, in regards to his question, maybe starting with the damages the Balalo are causing. If you are to look at the time before the late Magufuli died, he had actually chased them out of Tanzania. And this is on record. Then, now coming to Acholi line, we are looking at, if you are to look at the executive order number 3 on 19th of May 2023, which was issued by the president, and then just in about 3 days, I think 3 to 4 days, that's where we see Jerusalem Saleh coming in and bringing out these reasons that it should be halted a bit. Now, we have seen that the Balalo have intermarried with the Acholi people. That is true. Then the major factor that we are seeing right now is the Balalo failing to fence their land that they claim they acquired, either legally or illegally. Now, once you fail to fence your land and you're having over 1,000 heads of cattle, in Acholi land, we literally depend on agriculture. That's something that I should say that is our way of life. We depend on agriculture. And we are looking at heads of cattle. These are things that really feed on what we feed on the plants that we grow. These cows are moving everywhere, eating up all the crops. Then we are also looking at the damages, the damage on the killings that are rising, because there's a scenario that happened that 1,000 hectares of land was bought at 20 million. That was in an area called Paluda. 1,200 hectares of land bought at 20 million. Now, I remember there was a resolution that the money should be returned, but later on it arose that one of those, there were just conflicts and people died in the matter. just trying to get back the land. This brings to our attention that the damages that the Balalo are causing in Acholi land, it is not only something that can be seen from one point of view, but if you have to look at the different angles, because we should not actually blame the nomads. We should blame the big dons that own those large chunks of land. That's the reality.
No, but the point you're trying to put forward is the aspect of poverty that the poverty that the people in the region are facing are also leading them to go ahead and it's more like give away land, huge chunks of land.
Yes, it is true, because just last month, we had a request to the Acholi Students Union that why don't we come out as Acholi students and we tell these people who are fighting for us that the money these people are paying us is the money we're using to pay our children to school. We had no stand. We just kept quiet because we saw that this is something that if we are to, our elders are fighting for the Balalo to go away. Then we, the young ones, come up and say, because our mothers are crying that the money they are receiving from the land they are selling is the money they should pay us tuition or school fees.
It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
So that is a stand where even me myself, I did reply back to the people that came up on board. So that is where we are at this time. And right now it's not about the Balalo must go. I think we also have to be realistic that they have invested, and we have also gotten something. Because if you are to look at the meeting that was held, I think on 17th of last month at Kekwaro, actually our chiefdom there, whereby decisions were being made, they came up with a lot of solutions of either the Balalo must leave or they must agree that their land titles should be converted into leasehold, whereby they just live for a certain period of time and they leave the land back to the owners. I think that was a very viable conclusion that would bring harmony to everyone. Because if I come to Buganda, I buy land and they're chasing me away, and I believe that I acquired my land peacefully, but the customary ways of our living does not accept that. What can I do? We have to harmonize and 50-50. We have 50-50. I think I also agree with that stand. And then there are other issues whereby, as an individual, from my personal point of view, I would also rather think that if the Balalo are not complying with the executive orders, and they have over 1,000 heads of cattle in the region, and they actually for death row claimants that up to now even we are still demanding cattle from the government. I think this would also become an opportunity for us to own the cattle from the Balalo. If the government cannot work out on that.
No, but I think right now the arguments you're fronting, in my opinion, speaking as an Acholi, I feel like it's despeраcy. The situation we are in at the moment as a country and as the people of Acholi, our people are desperate. And live on camera, I must say that it's bad that we are in this situation and the government has make it seem that we have to beg for what belongs to us, which in my opinion, I think it's very bad, very bad. Growing up in a region that our parents have to struggle, we have huge rates of illiteracy. I lose words because it pains me. It pains me that I come from that region and I see how people do not go to school, and I see how what people derive from their sustenance, they're losing their land at very cheap prices. Someone selling away 100 hectares of land that could possibly cost billions of shillings at just 20 million Ugandan shillings. It's sad. It's sad, trust me, it's sad. And I think as a government, a regime even, not a government, as a regime, they ought to take this serious because these are emotions of the people. Like, you cannot play around with the emotions of people like that. But I'm not a panelist. I'm just speaking from
From a actually perspective.
from a perspective of someone who has studied from proceeds of agriculture, because that is how we survive. And it's sad that we're losing where we derive from our sustenance and have to beg for our land. Anyways.
Actually, just to add a little bit, if you're to go on ground in Acholi land, I think there's no way you convince an individual that that we should leave the Balalo. There's no way.
Yeah.
If when the president does what, with all his orders, he must just make his stand that the Balalo must leave our land, and that is it.
And you see, that's what I mentioned. People are already hurt. And then you are giving this child, let me use this, yes, you're giving them hope that, okay, these people are going to leave. Then 1 month down the road, you say, I think they can't leave. They should stay. People are being frustrated. They are rotting inside, and what comes out of that rot is going to be conflict.
Well,
it's very delicate. We can't afford that in Uganda at such a time. We have enough challenges. The economics is very bad. The political situation is very bad. People are crying from every region of this country. You can't afford a conflict. And if you can't manage this as government, it's unfortunate.
Anyway, as we wind up the first half of the show, let me just have you guys come in quickly to sum up on the issue of conflict and resolution. He submitted on how the Balalo crisis has contributed to conflicts in Acholi. I'll just quickly also want to bring in you, Brian, and then I get to the other panelists, then we can call off the first half of the show. To me, this topic is very sensitive and it touches my heart. So let us just
in fact, I think you shouldn't have been in that seat
today. Nonetheless, we shall have the conversation. Brian, what are your perspectives on the issue at hand, on conflict resolution? Because it looks like we are getting no resolution at all.
See, when we were growing up, unfortunately, I don't know about the rest of you, but I nearly did grow up in a barracks. And among the things that made soldiers die, and what makes men die, specifically men from time immemorial, are two things.
Okay.
Ladies and land. Those two L's have made men, societies, countries, regimes fall. Ladies and land. But it should be a learning point. But even
clarity on that issue, because
yes, I'm coming to that. That's what I'm coming to.
You don't want to be ready for what ladies can do to you when you get out of here.
No, it's a reality. And why I'm like,
I'm talking here against my
No, but for reality, two things have made societies, countries, regimes, and
even great men fall.
Ladies and land. One on the part of ladies. If I see this lady and I see she's too beautiful for my standard, it's usually best I withdraw and look for my level. Yeah. I mean, Drake, there is a lady you see and you're like, no, this is not my level. So why you go there and then cause conflicts? Because you may end up dying. Yeah, they have told you in rumors, the person dating that lady is maybe a guy from SFC, is a captain, and then you're a civilian. You still want to proceed? You're going for death. So rather you leave and go for your normal civilian. Coming down to land. Why has land made people die? It's because people have attachment to land. Whatever country you go to, there is a law of the land, there is the law of the sea. But people have a lot of attachment to land. And it's usually on a bigger percentage, emotional based. Yeah? You're not going to tell me to leave land where my ancestors were buried. You're not going to tell me to leave land that my grandparents have told me stories about how they have grown up from here. They know the history of the land, who was the chief, who was the what. Because this is nearly their tribal entity. This is their ethnicity. And it is on record that people will kill for their ground. People would rather lose their lives, or they would rather kill to maintain what's theirs. As he said before, this is what is happening in Palestine. Yeah, this is why invasions continue happening. So you do not tell me that one day you wake up as the head of the state, you make an executive order, which ought to be implemented as per the law. You have a body that is supposed to oversee the implementation, and then later on you say you're compromising your stand because of another paper that comes in to advise you, and then you move by the directives of that order and you leave even what the region itself is saying. You get, this is what draws you to what these people are saying. That I wouldn't want to entirely agree, but to a certain extent we need to agree to what he's saying. that you're having a chief justice of a country being reduced to a head of a delegation. I may not entirely agree with what he's saying, but by the mere structure that you have reduced, because a chief justice this is not a normal position. It's not the same as saying I'm the NRM chairperson of a certain village. It's not the same as saying I'm a member of parliament. You are the chief justice of the Republic of Uganda. You're being reduced to the head of a delegation. I do not care how people think on what I'm saying, but by the time you're reduced to that, that means you're being reduced to the point of view that you ought to beg and plead and wait on your master on what ought to follow. So if he says leave it for 6 months, as a chief justice, you're going to leave for 6 months. That means that any case that is arising within the Acholi sub-region regarding land and stuff, you're going to sideline it, saying we have other important issues to handle, right? Which would be a correct case. That means that you're putting people's anger at a higher maximum. That means you're putting people's frustration at a higher maximum. What then happens, as he was saying, he made a statement which I really don't want to, I want to take these things from both extents. He's saying the president should wake up one day and say, let them leave. What then happens if you wake up one day and say, let them leave? Or in the worst case scenario, man cannot cheat nature. What then happens if by the time we are finishing this panel, God forbid, God really forbid, we hear that the president is dead? The anger that people will attach to a tribe or a region that has led them for long, what will happen to the people who are there and grab the land? And people know Aruho came here and he said, one night, one Agaba comes and takes over 1,000 acres. What will happen to that one Agaba? You're going to have bloodshed, right?
Conflict. Definitely
Exactly.
conflict.
So we should settle in. One, we need to know our principles as a country. We need to know that if this land is for the Abasoga, let it stay for the Abasoga. Unless if I come and I buy land peacefully, as he said, or it has been given to me on a lease, and it's something understandable by the community, or let us sit down and have mediation. We get both parties and we solve this issue. Otherwise, we are going to continue having panels, heads of big people being reduced to heads of delegation, and wastage of taxpayers' money.
Yeah. Let me just quickly get the thoughts of my brother Phillip and Ivan. Then we can go for a short break on the issue at hand of conflict resolution.
I just got very disturbed by my brother, the speaker of the Acholi, because to him, it is just an issue like another. Maybe unlucky that I was born in a family where there was no land, that all of us we needed to work and buy on land. Maybe, but the issue of land is your life, is the killing all your ancestry. When you have ever seen Acholi play in the Fufa drum, playing West Nile or what, the emotions that be in that pitch, imagine if they no longer exist. The issue of land, you can't just stop. I don't know, people should stop Nobert. Nobert, you're becoming bad ambassadors, just like your senior. You take serious issues for fun, as if these are issues we can debate. My best friends in my circles, putting you aside, they are actually by tribe. But I know how it feels. When you find someone at his home, he can no longer own land, but there are intruders owning land there, and they are pushing him out. That even if you save the money here, getting land back home is becoming more expensive or hard than Kampala. Those fellas don't sell land. This is an issue you need to be conscious with. The game, the trap they are putting actually as a region is not going to is not something time. It can affect you and your kids to never possess anything and just begin stories where our grandfather used to stay here.
And yet it's fenced. And yet it's fenced.
I come from a background where there is no land. But when I imagine people from a background of land discussing something as if it is a near... to me, I was hurt when I see a Chief Justice. Rest in peace, Olanya is not here, the former speaker. Those are people whom I knew are bold about affairs of Acholi. Walter Ojara is not in this country anymore. Those are people who... Nobert Mao is the worst man who has, I think, let Acholi down. Because he would, by this time, I don't think Mao would be sitting in parliament always comfortable, knowing that the issue of Balalo back home is hitting. It hurts, it pains seeing things which, given our education, Museveni went to the bush to this to bring down Obote on issues of tribalism, Simanyu Obote favors Northerners alone. What? There was no land issue. I have not heard someone say Obote stole their land up to date. I'm just very young, but I have not heard someone say Obote stole his land. Neither have I heard someone that stole land. He only stole buildings in Kororo, which they have also been stolen by thieves. But the issue of land, when we talk about land, we need to really, this is identity, it is all we have. If a Mularo from Rwanda is getting a right to own land in Acholi, for you can you go to Rwanda and own land? Even if I sent you to Mbarara and gave you 20 million to own land, you may take 3 days to get land. But why is it taking a minute to get in your sub-region? We may be poor, we may be what, but the last thing we should remain with is land. Maybe let my brother conclude.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you. You see, the question of land is a very complicated one. The reason to date we say Black Americans are poor and impoverished in the United States is because they were denied a chance to own land. When I come back here, the president of this country a few years ago hosted the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. And they had a conversation where he cited that there's a time he visited Iran, and the president of Iran at the time indicated to him that the Israelites were not supposed to be in Palestine. And he says, him advising the Iranian president, our president advising the Iranian president then, that according to the Bible, the Israelites had history in that particular part of the world. So the president advised Prime Minister Netanyahu that he should accept the fact that just like Israelites had history in that particular part of the world, the Palestinians also have history in that particular part of the world. Therefore, they are supposed to coexist there. Now, that knowledge should be transplanted to northern Uganda. And we question, do they actually have history in that part of the country? Yes. Do the Balalo have history in that part of the country through the years? We find the answer. If they do, then they can exist and we can call for coexistence. If they do not, all we are summoning is conflict, and we don't want to see that.
Definitely. And you've just had it there. This is a conversation that personally I hold very dear to my heart. And I think when it comes to land, conflicts around the world are always sparked on issues relating to land. And right now, the global conflict that is going on between Israel and Palestine, it's about land. And we wouldn't want that again happen in Northern. We have already seen a lot of bloodshed in that region. And from my point of view, as a son of Acholi, I think we have already experienced a lot of bloodshed. All we need is peace, and we need our people to get educated. We need to fight poverty, and selling away our land or putting people to own rights to get rights on our land without even proper justification is broad day thievery or theft. I don't know how to term it. But nonetheless, let's just go for a short break and we'll be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that break. Right before the break, we were discussing the Balalo crisis in Acholi and interjecting it with the land question. Let us talk about the Apaa issue, which I think is also a very sensitive one that we ought to respond to, because that still falls under the category of the land question in Acholi. And right now, I'll just talk to Nobert to kindly give us an understanding or up to speed on the Apaa conflict.
Yes, thank you once again, Mr. Moderator Douglas Drake. Just a brief on the issue of Apaa. Once you understand what land crisis means and what individuals or the ethnicity of a certain group of people where they live, I think that's when you understand the story of Apaa very well. In decades ago, we have been having what I can say the insurgency in northern Uganda that was caused by our own brother that, of course, grew up from our land. And I don't know whatever the cause was, but he had looked at the government as something bad, but the impact again came back to us. During the insurgency, there were a lot of killings, different war crimes, and the rest. Now, getting back to the issue of Apaa, this is land that is about 256 square miles, approximately. I'm not yet well conversant with the actual figure, but it's a large chunk of land. It's even actually, I can say it's the size of some districts in Uganda. It is land that is so big, and the major conflict there is just between the three great, I can say the three great ethnic groups. I can say one, the interest. The first ethnic group that I would say that is not really an ethnic group is the government. Then the real ethnic group of the Acholi.
Wow.
Then we look at the group of the Madi people. If you are to look at all these people in regards to the matter at hand, so during the insurgency, we looked at where the government relocated the people who were in Apaa to IDP camps to enable them have a safer life, because they didn't want Ugandans to die, because they're leading us as Ugandans and they didn't want us to die. So they had to reallocate us. But there comes a scenario whereby the insurgents had cooled down and the people are going back to the IDP camps. And there they find the government claiming that that is their land. Yet previously, the government was the one that removed them from the land and took them to the IDP camps. Now, a lot of questions has risen up of bona fide occupants. These people are saying that now, if the government is claiming that this is not our land, we accept, but we can see now we are also bona fide occupants on this land. And the government has no ground to chase us, because we believe, even though we are not bona fide occupants, this is our land that we grew up from. You'll find even people coming up to show you that, I remember this place, this is where I was living. And it was during the time of the insurgency, and this was their land. Then there was a time I think there was some explorer called Bruce, who came in, a white, who wanted to do, I think they call it hunting, something.
Trophy hunting.
Yeah, something like that in that area. I think that's where the conclusion of the government of the area becoming a wildlife reserve came from. And you know, once the area is a wildlife reserve, it's not allowed for animals and people to coexist. But the actual people are saying, yes, we can coexist with the animals. The government is saying no. That's where the conflict is. Now, from the other side of our brothers, the Madi people, is they claim that this land is ours. The Madi people are saying the land is theirs. They also claim that they are also displaced during the insurgency. Now,
Actually, on the issue of the Madi people, there is a clan called the Oyui clan that claim to have stayed there before 1913. That they left that place in the years 1913 due to the sleeping sickness that was terrifying the region. That they stayed along the Nile, the Lake Victoria Nile, no, the River Nile, and then moved inside the regions of Madi. But then later on, when the sleeping sickness deteriorated, on moving back, now they find the populations of Acholi on the land. However, some people argue, some people from Oyui clan argue so, but they have very disproportionate or not contradicting facts to that effect. But that is what history says.
yeah, history it is true. The Madi people, as they claim that they were there, but the portion of land that they owned in that area, it was not worth the portion of land that Acholi are claiming to be theirs. Because one, if you are to look at the report that was made by the Madi chief and the Acholi chief through the office of the president, is that those guys they failed to come into a conclusion, because the Madi chief had relevant facts. The Acholi chief had relevant facts. That's where the issue of the map came in. That no, I've looked at the report of the two tribes. Now there's what they call the colonial map that should be used to determine this. Now the worst thing and the bad news of the colonial map gives the land back to the Madi people. The administrative boundaries shows that this land belongs in Adjumani, and we all know that Adjumani is for the Madi people. But the reality is that if Adjumani is for the Madi people, there has been coexistence of the Acholi and the Madi in that period, whereby some of the Acholi were in the borders. They were at least crossed Madi side a bit, and then they had to coexist in that side. So that's basically what is causing the insurgency. So the Madi people want their land, and the Acholi people want their land. But now at this time, if you have to look, it was last month when the mighty walk to Apaa was declared by the chief of Acholi, that's David Onen Acaye II. And when he declared the move to go and demonstrate, because there are a lot of killings, and I think those who have been following on the media, we have been sharing a lot of pictures of people who have been shot, burnt houses, stolen cows, all those things. We see that once that declaration was made by the chief, it was a grand call to the Acholi people that if the government cannot stop this issue, we should march. We should march up to Apaa. Then just we saw, I think 2 days to the march, the Madi chief also came up with this writing saying that if you want to start your work, we are ready to retaliate. So we are seeing now conflicts from the hierarchy of the great chiefs of both regions, the paramount chief of Madi and the paramount chief of the Acholi people. So once the chief of the Acholi people saw that writing, he did not respond. For him, his stand was, we are marching there. If the government wants to do anything, let them do. So on the D-Day, I don't know really what happened, but Uganda, of course, the army is there, because this one it has sent a very big warning to the government that anytime war can emerge between the Madi and the Acholi at that time. So I think the night before the march, the commander, I think the commander of the third or the fourth division from Gulu barracks had a meeting with the chief. I think they came into a conclusion that it is well, you can do this, but I think there are some things that we must avoid, because it was clear that we were going for a peaceful walk, but the retaliation from the Madi people was not going to be because of the peaceful walk. So when the day came, they actually mobilized themselves, and the work started. But we did not we the Acholi people did not treat the mighty land of Apaa. We stopped on the way because it was even late and the fear of losing lives of other people on the march. We saw that this is not something that will also be good for us. But the reality is that that land in Apaa, if the government does not come up and clear out, this conflict is still going to be there for a very long time, because this is not spawn land that we are just looking at. This is land that actually the issue is actually becoming more political, where you see there's Moses Ali is actually a very great man in the government, and now we are looking at the leaders in Germany who are aiming at 2026. The incite violence that go and do this because they believe that once you push your people for a common goal, they will like you because you're sharing their interest. They like you because of the interest. You share a common interest. Now, from this side of the Acholi people, you come and attack us, we cry and we lament to the government, nothing is done. I think this leaves the question to all of us as a country as well. Who is controlling our land?
All right. Let us get community perspectives. I would just like to let me start with you, Phillip. The conflict in Apaa, we just discussed the Balalo issue. Community perspectives. A region that is still recovering from a war that lasted for almost 20 years. 20 years down the road, I remember by the year 2006, that's when there was a term called Dukchen Paju, which literally means go back home. Now, that period, I remember I was 6 years old. And people were moving back to their homes and people were scared. And you move back home, things are not the same. Communities distorted, the social fabric of our communities broken. Now, I've grown, I'm an adult, seeing this conflict at hand. We have the issue of Apaa, we have the Balalo issue at hand. What are your comments? It's terrible.
Like I said earlier, it is unfortunate that we choose to handle very sensitive, emotionally binding issues like we handle any other issues, political issues, campaign issues, education issues. These things are not the same. One of the deadliest battles Israel and Palestine have had. I'm really using this example because it has shown us the extremities of what can come out of land.
Yeah.
In 2006, there was a border point between Israel and Palestine. And what marked the border was a tree. And the security people of the two would-be nations, unfortunately, one of them is not considered a nation, was that the Israel soldiers were supposed to be on this side of the tree and the Palestinians on this side. And one morning, Israel soldiers crossed the tree to this side. Conflict broke. A tree, just a tree that is, I don't know how many centimeters, but a single tree. Conflict broke out and hundreds of people had to die because of a tree. That's how sensitive it can be. But also, the government of Uganda should be ashamed that at such a time, we are discussing land, people are being chased from land, people are being invaded on land, in a region that has a multitude of minerals, in a region that has uranium, like he said, a region that has gold, a region that has soils that can produce sim, which is on a very high demand on the international market. I would assume we would be discussing now how many factories of lithium batteries are we having in Karamoja, or gold processing factories in Karamoja. There is mining going on.
But who is benefiting?
By who? And who is getting that money? These are the conversations we are supposed to be having from Karamoja. I want to say, and this is something that hurts me so much, and by extension to the entire African continent, the world today is discussing three major commodities or items: lithium for the electric transport
Clean
systems
energy.
and so on, clean energy, yes. Artificial intelligence, that is what the world is discussing. Microchips, those three commodities. They are the commodities that are going to be running this world for the next 20, 50, 100 years. I do not know which African government is discussing this. I do not know which part of Africa that has raw materials that are capable of producing these, like Karamoja. We could be here discussing Balalo came and invaded, I don't know, northern Uganda or northern. Why should we be like this? I don't know. Are we bewitched or something? Are we under some kind of
At least.
demon attack that we cannot think beyond what we see as Africans? It is unfortunate. And I think our governments should start thinking in that direction. We should start thinking of, other than having a gold refinery plant only in Entebbe, where there is no gold deposit, let us push it to Karamoja for Ugandans. Let us put, if we have uranium, let us put a uranium nuclear power plant in Karamoja. People are in darkness in that part of the country. Let us discuss how we can empower the growers of Simsim and how we can access the Chinese market, because it is the biggest market of Simsim in the world. And it is very profitable. Why do we settle for these small things and choosing to, it is, must have been Mwalimu Nyerere who quoted that East African leaders are interested in having a whole rabbit than half of an elephant or something like that. Why should these Ugandan leaders concentrate on having those small bits of their country land? I have 10 square miles of land. So what? Create something that is going to benefit this East Africa for the next 200 years. Make us leaders in gold export. Make us leaders in producing items out of, gold and copper and cobalt and uranium from Karamoja. Then we shall talk about you as a great man, as a statesman, as someone who contributed to the growth of Africa, but not someone who had a lot of land and that was useless and grabbing, and it is very painful.
Masawi, in this conversation, I'm very emotional, I must say. And being emotional in this, I have an attachment to it. And we are here speaking about Balalo crisis in northern Uganda. We're speaking about a power conflict in a region that has capacity and potential to fuel the economic development of this country. But we have been reduced to the extent of begging for our land, of pleading for what is ours, and yet we have so-called leaders or politicians who are interested in pushing their own political agenda and scoring political points. What is your say?
I feel my brother's pain that the topic degenerated us to Balalo. Without the Balalo, like the Wachues existed also. I think when the Northerners had leaders in power, their leaders were so generous that they looked at a country. Obote made very many roads, including the only Maram Road in Bududa today and the hospital, Bududa Hospital. Obote made a town of very great light. That today when you move around, the most buildings were built under his regime. When you come at Amin, most of the facilities that were constructed in his era were all constructed here in Central.
You must not forget that during Obote time, it is when we had the establishment of the Uganda Export Promotion something, and through the establishment of the 3 T's, tea, tobacco, and what is the other T? But key to mention about the coffee in that part of the country, Uganda under Bugishu Cooperative Union was the global determinant of the price of Arabic coffee in the world. Yeah. In that 1960 something.
Concluded my point.
Just imagine. Where are we now?
He has concluded my point to where I wanted to tell you whom a person from North is when it comes to Uganda. Today, When I look at you fighting Musimanyi Madiokoro, Musimanyi Acholi, when a Mulalo is taking your land, a third party is getting ownership. I don't want to believe that your fight is by accident. I'm not a man who can be reduced in this country to that level. To think that the conflict in Apaa land is by accident. Soon you will see Apaa sugar thriving the whole country. The land is being planted on sugarcane. You will see that none of you, the fighters, has won, but there will be someone who will come and take over that land. I think we need to be conscious, especially as the young generation. These guys may think they were bright, but okay, they have, with our parents, they have finished them. But with us, we are not yet done. At least when you produce a kid, let that kid be a better version of you. Because when you look for example, my senior here has given a picture of where a country with a young population should be putting its energies. Our energies actually today would even not be much of what of the land question. Should not be much of what of the leadership question. It would be the war of productivity, the war of putting our youthful energies to action. A war of a country which is competing. Today, if you move around Africa, if you travel a lot and ask people, when you tell people you're from Uganda in other places, if those people don't hear of the likes of Cheptegei and just say Uganda, they will say, hey, the land of Museveni. 1, 2, 3, they will begin creating jokes over your democratic system, your human rights situation. It is not good. It is terrible. And back in the times, the land was even a human right. Possession back in the traditional setting. But still, with someone who owns still has his right that should be protected by a government instead. If I own my land, and why do I go to Uganda Lands Commission to register my land if government can't protect me? It means it is a responsibility of the government. When you're going to citizens to entrust you with the power to lead them to address the land question. But because government is absent in the lives of Ugandans, they will isolate some of you, they few give you some high positions, just like they have done for Acholi. They are going to suck their pain. It is just a matter of time. They are going to feel it. They may think us from regions who have cried and given up, it is by accident. But unless the young people wake up and refuse to be understood for by those they think understand too much, you think for yourself that why? Do I own land? First of all, we are steady on the panel, but the cost of saving to now just buy a plot of land, you know what it means like. If you say you're beginning to save to buy a plot of land, especially here in Central, you know what it means like. What of this that is being taken just by capture? Where you're going to be buried. I'm not because I own anything in Kampala, I want to be buried in Kampala. Eventually, I need to be taken to Bududa. But to being taken to Bududa, when there is even nowhere you can be buried, that's what they call land and a human being. There is a land which you lose and you're also gone. Europe is in the current confusion. It is also because of the effect of land. That Europe today is confused. He has given examples. There is India and Pakistan, the Kashmir border. You will go to China and Hong Kong. There is the very confusion. It has all come from land. But when you look at our Ugandan perspective, these are people who have history in those places. But our Ugandan perspective, people of yesterday, because they have captured power and overstayed, they are calling their brothers in law with cows. Imagine how many Acholis have cows? You don't even have a cow, you are under a hut struggling with your cassava and dinner. A fella comes with 1,000 cows to chase you off. Why don't they go to DRC? They claim they have put their security. They will fund DRC. Why doesn't it take them there? So it is not by accident. It is what I called for consciousness. As a young generation, we shall really be kind hard by our kids for the mistakes we observe. That all this is taking place, but we shall come and the chief, a chief, we have left our responsibility that the chief was negotiating. When you come up to say that, at least for me, let me go and really defend mine. You look as if you're idle, you're confused, you lack what to do. But they are just like he feels the pain. They have reduced us to that. When I brought an issue of a Chief Justice being reduced to a actually delegation chairman, to him it may have looked Museveni is so powerful. But he went to the bush to dislodge of Rangi whom we thought was a problem. The Rangi never had issues with land. He said he was tribal. I don't know any generation today which is tribal as his generation. And the Balalo Babagisu, don't they come from the same ethnicity as him? Didn't he fight with them in RPF? Are they new in Uganda? How did they come to Uganda? Salim Saleh coming up. Who is Salim Saleh? If Salim Saleh challenges the president, it means we are hostage of individuals. I think if we get chance to see a transition of power, we should do better, especially him now, a senior counsel and a great leader now of a generation. We need to do better because it is not good. We always go. After Uganda has degenerated over trends, is why he concluded my point. We still cry today that we lost leaders and we betted wrongly. We never participated in the bringing of Museveni to power much. The few who participated were individuals. But to us, where I come from, we feel we lost from what North had given us as a chance. Today, we are all equally. Is why I've told you, as long as we remain in this drama, in that Apaa, none of you will win. Neither Acholi, neither Moses Ali. Moses Ali, I don't think he has more 30 years to live. He has. I don't think Moses, I don't want to speak like a witch doctor, but I doubt if he has 10. Let me be very realistic. Yeah? I doubt if Moses Ali has 20. I don't know if I have tomorrow, but I don't know if he has 20. Yeah? But if now Moses Ali is determining, we shall kill people. How do you kill people today in this generation where we have gone to school? Over something, you're also going to die and live. I think most of the potential of the generation currently living in Uganda has been untapped due to the confusion created by the system itself. They have put us in a system that has reduced us to now Bobi Wine, Muhoozi, Museveni and the opposition. The other day it was Museveni, Besigye. You will find a senior politician in Uganda has never thought of his impact in his own life or even in his own family. We have lost a lot of potential and energy to confusion than to working how best we would market Uganda. So I feel sad. The people who are taking the issue of Northern Uganda and Balalo, right? It is not that I hate. They have beautiful girls if you want to marry. I don't want to say the Balalo are so bad. Yeah? But there is a different way that government should handle Balalo. Put them to some limit. You see, the way they operate, they even don't have limit. Uganda is done. Land in Nakasongola is no longer enough. From nowhere, you hit to another region. At least let them set proper procedures of how they purchase, how they introduce themselves in an area. We don't say being a Muralo is not a crime. Similarly, being a Mugisu, I know is not a crime. But there should be procedures in how a country operates. Not a country where people capture a place, your brother is saying, leave them alone. For you, you're saying, oh, these people have taken the wrong approach. The owners are crying. Then from nowhere, the sudden boom, the Chief Justice is the head of a delegation of Acholi. That was the most insult you can see in a country. Tomorrow it will be the speaker. That worshipping, that gods, that being a god is also part of the confusion. Because really, I've asked myself a question. Ever since the Acholi Apaa and the issues broke up, where are Acholi leaders? You just see young boys who are bloggers fighting. The Lilian Abez are quiet. We were with her in National Youth Council. She used to say to us she's the hope of the Acholi. They are quiet. Nobert Mao is quiet. He has been saying he's an ambassador. They are quiet. But whom do you represent if not your tribe, people who gave birth to you? I don't think there is any region that gave Uganda justice than that part of the country. most of the problems they face, the Konya problem, we don't know who funded the Konya up today.
That's a question we can come back to, but it's just it's too much. But let me
I
get
just
from-
want to
then I
make
get-
a
yeah.
small, I don't know, correction or advice to the brother here. As young people and as emerging leaders of this generation, we are duty bound to be respectful of the people that have come before us. So it is really important when we refer to them. For example, you talk about Moses Ali. He has served this country in various positions, and it's only fair to refer to him with his
his
titles.
statement.
The Right Honorable Moses, Third Deputy Prime Minister. It's such a position.
No,
The
when you
president.
put general, actually, you'll waste your time to think he's a prime minister. What does he do there? Let's be realistic.
It is only fair to refer to them
Better call him
with their
General Moses
titles.
It's all right.
The Right Honorable,
What
the
did he solve when
President.
he came to Apaa? What did he solve? All he created to say we shall beat them. Does the prime minister still promise to beat people? Or to, when I look at the prime minister of today, she has no capacity to solve a problem but say we shall fight. How did Moses Ali stand to say they will fight? How did you feel as a younger Ugandan?
It's all right. I understand the emotions are high and the topic is sensitive. And as a young generation, we must open our eyes. Because believe me, we are going to feel the impact. It has just begun. And the fact
We
that
are feeling.
it has just begun, the worst is yet to come, provided we do not act. Let me listen from you, Aruho, then we can wind up the conversations on possible recommendations to young people and our government.
All right, thank you so much. One, we should read. There is nothing as painful as illiteracy. We have two classes of illiterate people in Uganda. We have the educated illiterate people, and then we have the illiterate people. Why am I saying this is because you see most of this confusion cuts across to who we put into leadership, cuts across to who then we want to respect and put in our process of arbitration, in our process of mediation, in our process of negotiation. It then cuts across to that. You're having an elite class of people who are closing their eyes to realities on ground. And then you have a class of people who are not elite, who are more aware of the impacts, the negative impacts of what conflicts are doing to them. Yeah. Why am I saying this? He talked about the Honorable Lydian Nobert. She's educated. We all know she's educated. He talked about the Honorable Nobert Mao, was educated. You're having the same caliber, the same class of elites quiet on this whole issue. It then cuts across. What do we need to do as young people? Because their time is already moving. If Aruho Brian is 40 years today, I want to be 40 years this next year. I'll be 41. Neither will I be 39 or 38. The thing is that one, let's read as young leaders, as youth, as teenagers, and anyone below the age of 35 currently really should invest in their education. Because it is a fact that President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni may not be alive for the next 50 years. God forbid. But the reality is that you cannot cheat nature. He made an example of General Moses Ali. These are realities on ground. Yes, I may not be sure of my tomorrow, but I can be sure that if I read today, if I research, if I put in the time and the respect, later on in life, when I'm voted into maybe an office or by appointment, I'm there, or I've made it somewhere in life, I should come back and make a positive impact. The problem is that we think we can make solutions when we are up there. That's the problem that we have. Yeah. That we think that we can make a solution to a problem when we are either appointed as a minister, or we are waiting to become judicial officers, or we are waiting to become MPs. It doesn't need that. It takes only but your sole responsibility as a person who has seen a problem, sit down and make a time frame for it, engage people who are meaningful. People who are meaningful may not necessarily, you see, there is the confusion of us running to, oh, he's a general, he's an MP. You can get your fellow youth who are not in positions of leadership. You go and it starts as simple as sensitization. Tell them that we have issue A, B, C, and D, I think we can work on it in time from A, B, C, and D. Let's get on the grounds, cover this zone, then we cover this zone, let's cover this zone. Let's create awareness. Let's move down from the awareness. Let's now get into capacity building. Let's move from the capacity building. Let's move on to implementation. It's as simple as eating chocolate. Thank you.
Not as simple though. From the way things are looking, things are very complicated. But that's a very powerful submission there. Nobert, recommendations.
Yes, thank you once again. Maybe before I give in my recommendations, I still strongly want to disagree with my brother's submission on camera because sometimes I doubt whether he lives in Uganda on his submission of towards the Chief Justice. That's basically it. I still doubt whether he lives in Uganda.
For you have accepted. There's the difference between you and me. For you have accepted. Me, I don't accept.
Yeah, that's the principles of law on paper is different from the principles of law in reality in Uganda.
But equity follows the law.
You save time on reading law and confusing in Uganda.
So that's basically it. I still doubt whether he lives in Uganda. Just basically on a little recommendation towards the matter time. In Uganda, we have lived in a lot of scenarios, especially in Acholi line. We have seen the government putting us in a system basically called, I think I should just say, I should refer to as rotational grazing. Yes, in Acholi line. Because if you are to look at the matters that have risen in Acholi line, one, once the Acholi are being attacked by the Karamajongs from the side of Karamoja, the government chips in. The matter is never solved. They bring in the issue of Apaa just to try to blend. Then the issue of Apaa will never be solved. Now we are on the Balalo issue. It is not going to be solved. That's the reality.
So you're rotating.
They are going to rotate us back and take us to the Aswaran saga. Then the issue of the Chakobani. That's where we have been living, in that rotational circle as Acholi.
Remember, 2026 is along the way. And as I said, political tensions fuel these things, and people looking to score political points.
And maybe little info. Were the valley dams constructed?
I think a few they constructed, but it is just the interest of the people in that particular area, the person who wants to rule the particular area.
Yeah, recommendations.
So I think the best recommendation, it is just clear on the executive order number 3, that the president clearly said that the Balalo, if they cannot coexist and fence their land and stop destroying the crops of the Acholi people, they must leave. And I don't agree to 100%, but my best recommendation is that at this time we have really failed to coexist with the Balalo, because you cannot carry a pig to a mosque. That is something that has failed, and that's what is happening in Acholi line.
Wow.
So basically, I think
those are very heavy cannons fired.
Yes. So basically, I think the right thing to do is these people must leave the line, because they have really destroyed Acholi line. Yeah, thank you. Basically,
See, such issues are very sensitive in that
2 goals and 0.
emotions can be skyrocket so high. That's why you see it's very important that they ought to be resolved. Not actually ought, they must be resolved, or else we are just heading for more conflict and more disaster. Phillip, recommendations.
Like I mentioned earlier, historical connection, very important. You cannot just import yourself somewhere. As a human being, commodities may, but human beings, we have things that bind us to places. You will remember around 1913, there was a recommendation of having the Israelis being brought to Uganda, actually in that part of the country still. That's where they had planned to settle them. But they declined still on grounds that they didn't have historical and cultural attachments to the area. So I really think it is very important for us to emphasize that historical, cultural connection of people. And you see, settler communities, that challenge might exist. But over time, we've seen these people try to blend in the communities they get into. And the problem, I think the reason the Jews have faced a lot of challenges wherever they've been is because they have refused to blend. And I try to smell a similar scenario in northern Uganda. It's like the Balalo, whoever they are, have failed to blend with the Acholis and try to adapt their way of life, how they survive, what they do, how they manage their society. And this creates the conflict, because if you've come to my house and you can't go by my rules, because even when you follow the land tenure system of this country, and you mentioned customary, the constitution suggests that if you buy land from an area that is under that system, then you are duty bound to follow the rules that govern that particular area. Now, when you come to northern Uganda, you buy land in whichever, whether legally or illegally, or through intimidation or through connections and so on, you are duty bound to follow the rules that govern the Acholis, which is the other group, Madis, and so on. You are duty bound. Now, if the Balalo have failed, and it is confirmed because the president has put this in writing, they have misbehaved, they are not collaborating with the Karamajonga, with the Acholis, they are destroying their property, they are killing people, actually, some of them. These are things said by the president, so I can say them with authority. There is no shortcut, there is no option. Even when you are in your house and you misbehave, you are arrested and taken to prison. It means you're not fit to be in that particular area. So if they are not fit to be in northern Uganda, then... And I think we have, you see, this country, we don't want to create a semblance of saying the Balalo, do not have rights and they cannot...
Actually nice people when they are not looking for land.
I want to say that it is just the leadership of this country, and by extension the East African community, thinking much deep of how they can address the question of these people. We have land where they can be resettled and they can comfortably be there with their animals, because you won't have every other 10 years a group of, say, 500 people with 200,000 heads of cattle moving in one area and they are colonizing it because they have cattle. Even if they say nothing, they just push their cattle in an area, in a village. You just have to move out. But without a single word, the cattle will chase you away. So we have to address this question as the East African community. It is our question, not just Uganda, and we have to think future, because in an era where we're discussing Africa Agenda 2063, you don't want to be in 2030, 2040, and you're still discussing some group of people doesn't know where they're supposed to stay. You're supposed to be discussing how then are we going to have these people trade with the people in West Africa, the Turkana, or whoever is in West Africa or North Africa, in the Maghreb or wherever. You can't be discussing land. This one doesn't know where to stay. This one grabbed land. This one has a gun, which is not legal. No, we must style up as Africans.
Shall we be discussing such issues by 2030 in Uganda?
We need these conversations.
I think that's something we
need
have to
these
see.
honest,
And
candid conversations.
We shall be discussing who's going to be the next president.
And then after that we forget.
And you see,
go
that is
back
the
to
challenge.
politics. But anyway, let's have your recommendations, Masawi.
My recommendation to my handsome and beautiful people of Acholi, I think you need to wake up and fight for yourselves. I feel sorry that your sons and daughters have got compromised, and it is not new. Kintu Musoke, Semugerere, the Wagandas were done the same. They were appointed in Prime Minister Kintu Musoke Semugerere, and as they were that, Sembabule went, Gomba went, Muvende went. The whole of Uganda is gone. Kahoni method. They taught us which they knew what is that Shakazulu. They use these are rebels who came with a plan. It is not by accident. As long as you sit to begin saying Moses Ali said, you hear more life than Moses Ali. But he said, and things went like that. It is not by accident, it is by design. The issue of land is identity. We can be here 50 years next and they said this land belonged to just the Acholi, but the people who are here came from somewhere else. We may say we have the roads, we may say they have the city, but as long as you don't have the power, you fight for you. At least you fail to achieve the power in Uganda, but their power naturally is pride to you. The adds to any actually listening to me. When they call you actually, you feel happy. I've never seen any actually whom you call actually and say you're tribal. That actually has never existed unless he's yet to be born. No one feels pride in being called his tribe like an actually in this country. So all I call is awaken up. To those of you who get near to these people, at least negotiate that. As you say, you're bringing PDM for value addition. Give PDM to the Balalo also to buy brand and feed their cows from one place. Let them also acquire decentralized systems of agriculture that don't allow you to use the traditional ones of moving. Because even that also spreads diseases. Cows also move with diseases. A cow from this end in Muvende will go and infect cows in Acholi. There are also modernized ways of farming, of grazing cows. I don't know why he gives the Acholi money to do and do value addition, but doesn't give the Balalo. He gives them guns to go and look for land. It doesn't add up. We have been diverted the road. Things don't add up. All we need is vigilance, consciousness, to wake up. At least be that person. Don't fear to speak the truth. I think if I would be spearing, I would never have reached Kampala. I would still be in Uganda. Because of the truth is how I reached where I am. The truth can, but just like my colleague here said, we have a lot of serious things to deal with as a generation than issues of Apaa, Balalo. Balalo is just a Ugandan like anyone who deserves to be happy. But once you give him the mindset of power, of a gun, of land, he will die and leave the land. But I think this Balalo should be shown how more money they can make in their cattle by being where they are. Add value from here. Add your farm. Connect them to the Dutch where I see you say you have a partnership on how best they can be in productivity from where they are. They are modern methods. But it's why me when I see people say they are looking for Simanyi land, Simanyi water for their cows. In this era, in this era, do you dig in your neighbor's land? So it is just a mockery of a debate in the country, but I still feel sorry if he doesn't feel. For Chief Justice Owinyidolo to say you're a chairman in a country when I wish someone knew what it means being a Chief Justice. What Hassel Dolo went through to be now leading an actually delegation pleading. That is not how a country is run.
But
If you've been compromised, if you've been compromised, you think negotiations should be a president to travel to Gulu to sit with the Acholi in a serious country.
It's happening on second.
It should be a president to move to Acholi to meet the people of Acholi, not even Owinyidolo, but the inhabitants. But by the time a Chief Justice who is to be dealing with serious things of the country, and when I looked at the full delegation, really, how do you mock Ugandans like it? I feel sorry for these people because their parents, they have worked very hard in Uganda to be reduced to near agents.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This has been a very interesting topic. How I wish I could also submit on the matter, but nonetheless, you guys have done justice.
Don't be a Chief Justice and they send you to me to plead. Yeah.
Definitely not. I think I stand for the truth and I stand for what I believe in. And I think our sons and daughters, my fellow brothers and sisters in Acholi, should stand for the truth and stand for what we believe in. As you have all submitted, these are issues that are very sensitive and critical. Otherwise, thank you all for your time and for sparing your wittiness and intelligence to submit on this issue. Otherwise, my name is Douglas Onen. This is Inter-University Interface. It has been brought to you by Center for Constitutional Governance on Civic Space TV. See you again next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.